Welcome to the Crystal Coach Show with me, your host, Anahata, helping you live every day with clarity, guidance, and practical wisdom. Are you feeling overwhelmed, anxious, maybe disconnected? Do you ever feel like you don't know how to live a life of peace and joy? I am Anahata Roach, the Crystal Coach, and during this show, we channel divine wisdom through stories of service, spirituality, and stones for self-care. The Crystal Coach Show leaves you with a feeling of connection and the clarity it takes towards becoming the best version of yourself as you hear from thought leaders and many others to help you ignite the crystalline nature of who you really are. Stay tuned. The Crystal Coach Show starts now. Hello, and welcome to the Crystal Coach Show. I'm your host, Anahata, and I'm so happy to be here, and happy Labor Day to those of you who are watching on the third Monday of August. I want to ask you, today I was thinking about, what are we going to talk about? Lessons, learning from life. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty qualified to say that I've learned some things in the years that I've been on the planet. And so learning from life, I feel, is, especially since I have been working on my own stuff and releasing programs that no longer served me, and really trying to do my best to show up as close to what my soul wanted it to be as possible, so that I'm here to serve others. And that's my sole purpose, but it's not everybody's. So let's get started. What can life teach us? What are the hardest things to learn in life? Well, everyone is different, yet we all long to understand the world around us and within us. In my practice, I would say truth, trust, patience, personal boundaries, self-love, and letting go of unhealthy emotional attachments. Yeah, letting go of unhealthy emotional attachments. They're among the top of the hard to master list. Yeah. I've found that the most painful experiences we have are often the ones that help us grow or move forward and change our behaviors for the better. Well, we certainly know what we don't want after experiencing a lesson like that, right? So today, when it comes to learning life lessons, I think I want to share with you some aha moments and takeaways that have occurred in my coaching and emotional program clearing practice, as well as my own healing journey. I love to see the light that comes into a client's face when they recognize a core soul truth and resonate with it for the first time. I remember when I had this experience for the first time. Yeah, it was early in my awakening journey. I was working with a medicine woman in Sedona, Arizona, who had taken my husband and me on a hike into the Red Rock country. By the way, this was my idea and not my husband's. He was just along to placate me. He's a material man, shall we say, who needs to be able to process with at least one of his 5 physical senses. So this spiritual quest of mine was to him kind of ridiculous, but be that as it may. We were hiking for quite a while, and then we came to this really steep hill, and the shaman instructed us to climb up it. I was the first one up. So we climbed this really tall, steep hill, just like a hand over hand kind of crawling. It's pretty steep. And at the top was an outcropping of rock that had an overhang and formed what I can best describe as a yoni or a womb. It was deep red inside this womb, and the energy of the place made me incredibly emotional. The shaman left my husband in the space and took me to an adjacent shelf of rock that hung out over the canyon we had just passed through. Gosh, we must have been like 50 feet above the ground. And at the time, I had an extreme fear of heights. I think that's called acrophobia. And the shaman took note of that and said, trust that the Earth Mother has you. And that assured me. So I followed very carefully, and I sat down with my legs dangling just as carefully. When I looked over at my husband, just sitting there, not doing anything, I don't know, I was overcome with the realization that I couldn't help him. I just couldn't help him. Here I was gathering all this experience and knowledge and training, and I could not help him to heal. As I sobbed quietly, the shaman spoke to me in hushed tones. No, my dear. He is on his own soul path, and you are on yours. But high tides lift all boats. As you heal, he will benefit. I see this again and again with my clients, in relationships especially. It's the client that usually is the one that comes to me with expectations of certain outcomes with their spouse or partner. They want to help or heal or fix someone else, all the while saying that they also want to clear out the emotional and energetic blocks within them, within their own bodies, blocks to health or happiness or drama. I have used that Sedona shaman's words as guidance during these situations. It is best to focus on healing oneself first, and your partner will either come into resonance with your higher frequencies or will leave. It's a free will choice thing. Another way to say it is like, if you've ever flown on an airplane, you know that at some point during the spiel that the flight attendants do, there's a demonstration of how the oxygen masks fall down from the roof or the little overhang thing. And the instruction is always put your mask on first and then assist. So if you really want someone to change, you need to change. If you change your outlook, your perspective, your behavior, it will reflect the person closest to you. And that person will either start to change and modify in the frequency to match the reflection, or they will have to leave because the frequency doesn't match, and you will no longer have anything in common, if that makes any sense. Well, regardless, as you heal first, anyone living with you will benefit if they choose to rise with you. Okay, so the takeaway is this. We are all on our own individual journeys in this lifetime. So pay attention to yours first. Where are you being led? What signs do you see? How do you feel? Don't waste your precious energy on healing or fixing someone else, even if you love that person as you have never loved before. Your beloved may actually, unbeknownst to you, have such deep self-loathing hatred that you'll never be able to love them enough for them to heal, no matter how hard you try. So fix yourself first and see what happens. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about what more life lessons and what happens when trust is broken. We'll be right back. Hey, we're back at the Crystal Coach Show, and I'm Anahata, your host, talking about learning from life and what kinds of things that lessons in life bring us. I've really thought that for a long time, you think, oh, why me? Why is this happening to me? But if you look at it from a perspective of the soul is always wanting to experience all the whole variety of emotions in life. And there are things that sometimes we keep coming back, on this karmic wheel, we keep coming back into these lives to learn. And, the old adage about insanity being the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, sometimes we go through lifetimes doing the same exact thing, expecting different results. But until you learn that lesson, you are going to be continuing to experience those kinds of things that happen to you. So, instead of looking at something that happens, like, for example, the worst thing when I was first starting out, the worst thing in the world that I thought could ever happen to me was to be fired from a job. And when I got fired from a public relations agency, who, was working on, actually, they didn't have enough business. I wasn't in charge of sales, that they didn't have enough business to support all of the AEs they had in the office. But anyway, what happened is, I thought that was going to be the worst thing in the world that had ever happened to me. And I cried and I just went home and I got so depressed and I had a really good cry. But then I kind of like wiped my face and said, well, I got 2 weeks severance. Let's see what's out there. And I tell you, in less than a week, I had another job and it was better. It was a better paying job. It was a better position. And it was like, why was I afraid of getting fired? That aspect of it, because I was in a job that I no longer enjoyed and I wanted to be doing something else. And the universe brought that to me. But see, I thought it was the worst thing in the world. And once it happened, I realized, no, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me because it moved me out of I was kind of stuck. This energy for me was stuck. And so I moved, it forced me to move and it forced me to look beyond what I had. And it was a great opportunity and I enjoyed the time that I was there and I used that to go to someplace else, right? So it's sometimes the things that you think are just, oh, I don't know what I would do if that ever happened. Sometimes it's the universe's way of kind of kicking you in the rear end and getting you to a better place for yourself. So anyway, I want to talk about more life lessons in this segment. So when I started my healing practice, well, this is a very tough subject. And I just want to kind of give you a heads up that, if you've had some trauma around um, abuse, it could be a little bit of a trigger, but I feel like it's something that we don't talk enough about. And um, so that's my heads up. And, you can turn the volume down for about 3 or 4 minutes and then bring it back up. But I just need to say that when I started my healing business, I could not fathom, I really couldn't even fathom how children can be deliberately hurt by the very people that brought them into the world. But the sheer number of people that have come to me in my practice with these kinds of issues has forced me to face it. Young ones experience so much pain, abuse, and suffering that they form these emotional triggers and limiting beliefs about who they are, about their worthiness and potential. And these patterns are set well into adulthood. And that's who they become. They become people who are reflecting of these patterns of unworthiness and undeserving. They learn to, well, it's, a lot of people who have undergone this have learned that people can't be trusted and people lie. They learn that love is conditional. I mean, this is the kinds of things that they come out of this experience with. And this is when they see me, we're trying to untangle from all of that, so that they can see the beautiful, perfect light of soul that is within them in this physical body. But it's just like sometimes it's like this tangled ball of, or maybe even a hairball, just a tangled ball, and trying to tease out all of these strings and untangle this web of abuse. I know that they long for love, that they were starved for it as a child. When traumatized people finally do trust and open to another person, especially in the pursuit of love, it's just crushing when that love is not returned or reciprocated in the way that they expect. It's all the more hurtful when there's an emotional attachment to building a life together permanently, and then there's a betrayal. I see these kinds of instances in my practice, and it's hard work for the client. It's not hard for me, it's hard work for the client to recognize that they are not, that the conditioning they had is causing them to see and perceive their world in a certain way, and that they have opportunities to release that, to not continue to follow and to be guided by programming, triggers, and beliefs that no longer serve their highest and best good. So clearing these programmed blocks around being open to love, including the self, expressing the heart's truth, and feeling worthy enough to stop taking abuse, either by walking away or setting really firm personal boundaries. When that really happens, I've seen it. It's amazing. The change is incredible. It's like a new person walks in to see me. It's like here's a person that literally was humped over or kind of closed in on themselves. And then as we worked, you can see the shoulders straightening. You can see the light expanding from the heart. It's such a beautiful thing. Yeah, I've seen clients who started with this really deep cycle of shame and distrust. And then after we've cleared out this negative programming and thinking, and thriving and happy, and they have the tools to recognize the triggers when they arise and not respond. Listen, we're all working through this as best we can, this life. But the takeaway here is this: you don't have to continue to live in the cycle of blame, shame, guilt, and insecurity. You just don't. There is a way to shift out of this programmed perception of reality. You can have a new outlook and a new way of living when the lessons are learned and the old programs are deleted. You know, there's many stories I could tell you about clients who have come to me for clearing and truly, deeply believed their lives were less valuable than others. One client in particular and I'm thinking about, had spent her life in service to others, putting everyone else's needs first and letting her health deteriorate. We focused on releasing the programs around self-worth that had happened to her in childhood. And she began to be a much more expressive, expansive individual. Her dimmed light started to shine as she emerged from this type of energetic stasis, like from a pupa to a butterfly. It was beautiful to watch her unfold into a new way of loving herself and living. It wasn't without growing pains, though, as the people who had taken and taken and taken from her without ever reciprocating were no longer able to use her in the same way. And so, therefore, she felt that that was her way of feeling loved, right? But she was understandably, she was conflicted at first, but then she was able to free herself from that guilt of no longer being there for others in the same way. She began to love and then respect herself enough to not go back to that old way of putting others' needs before her own. Here's a takeaway. When you're freed from a limiting belief or an emotional program that says you are not worthy, wow, the whole world shifts and changes around you for the better. Let's take another quick break and we'll talk about some ways in which the consequences of not being able to let go are not something that you really want to think about. I'm Anahata Roach, the Crystal Coach. And if you're interested in emotional program clearing, I can be found at https://thecrystalcoach.com. We'll be back. Hey, welcome back to the Crystal Coach Show. I'm Anahata, your host, and we're talking about learning from life and what kinds of lessons that gives us. When we're willing to work on the things that come up for us to learn, and we're willing to let go of that which no longer serves us and the emotional programs that keep us feeling less than and unworthy. There's another side to that. The side that when you resist letting go, when you insist on a thought form that is so negative that it just puts you on a path to where you can't come back from that. I've got a couple of examples here I want to share with you, and I know it's kind of like a little bit of a downer, but still, I want to show you that, you have really choices. There's free will here. an action. You can choose to let go and work on the things that are holding you back, or you can choose to hold on to grudges or hatred or just a decision that you've made, and you're stuck with that decision. You're not going to go back from it. And the results are either, you have a new life or you don't. Okay. I had a client one time who had battled and beat cancer twice. But by the time I saw her, the cancer had returned a third time. So on the treatment table, we were doing crystal resonance therapy, and her body had called for these stones that were definitely pointing, I mean, screaming almost, to a need for forgiveness and self-love. When I read the stones for her after the session was over, we co-created that session. And I thought she would be really interested to see that, I said, there is something that you really need to forgive. And first, she was kind of indifferent to what I was saying. But when I said that, she sat up and she said, I will never forgive what was done to me, she said. So my heart kind of fell when she said that, because she was such a beautiful soul light. But I understood that if she was holding that in her heart, she would never truly heal until she was willing to let go of that attachment to the hatred she kept so close to. So I held space for her highest and best good, and I saw her once more before the cancer finally stopped her physical body from functioning. That is a karmic lesson of huge, huge proportions. Your energy follows your thoughts. My own father is another example of how your thoughts can literally create your reality. On Daddy's 80th birthday, we had all celebrated, and it was afterwards, and we're just kind of milling around. And he told me privately that he was ready to die. That was so weird. He was in relative health. I mean, he didn't have a lot of pain in his body. He was ambulatory. He could move around easily. He looked fit by any other standard of measure. I don't know. I just had no way of responding to that. I was kind of dumbfounded. I finally said, why in the world would you say that, Daddy? And he says, well, I've lived enough and I've seen enough and I'm ready to die. I'm ready to go. Okay. But, you have your eldest grandsons getting married, and your other grandchildren are they're growing into adulthood. Why would you say that you've seen enough? He got really indignant with me. He says, I'm ready to die, damn it. That's it. Okay, Dad. Well, that was in April. It took his body 1 year and 4 months to comply. Towards the end, he was really kind of terrified that his wish had come true. But it was too late. I was privileged to help him cross over. So that was a blessing for both of us. But here's your takeaway. Be careful what you wish for, and the resistance of letting go of old hurts and betrayals. Because holding on to grudges and things that happened to you in the past will keep you locked in a negative energy pattern that will eventually suck all the life out of you. But it doesn't have to be that way. There's a way out of this perception of negativity and darkness if you could only allow yourself to see the path forward. I don't wish this on anyone, but I do say this as a reminder that thoughts are powerful. When you focus on things that you're afraid of, many times those very things you're afraid of happen to you. Why? Because that's all you've been putting out there in the universal field. The very thing you're afraid of can happen because you focus so much energy and your thoughts and your mental vibrations out there on that. I know that sounds really woo, but I've just given you two examples of people who have actually brought that to them. I had another person, I can think of another two examples, but I'll only give you one, whose father had Alzheimer's. And she was always focused on being afraid of developing Alzheimer's because her dad had it. And it was like, she's a brilliant mind, incredible law practice. But the main thing, and by the way, this is not a client, it's a friend. The main thing was, I'm going to get Alzheimer's because my dad had it. Guess what? She had early onset Alzheimer's. You cannot tell me that her mental state and focus on the fact that she was so terrified she was going to get it brought it to her. You just can't tell that to me. I mean, I'm sorry. Maybe there's other ways to parse that, but it really felt like she had called it to her. So anyway, that's your takeaway. I have, as usual, some crystals or stones that I want to show you, talk to you about, because they can support you in learning life lessons and being able to let go and to be able to accept and heal those wounds that, you keep. Some people just it feels like they've got this huge trash bag of injustices and grievances and hurts that they just drag around with them for all their life. And it's heavy and it's burdensome and it saps their energy. It doesn't do anything else to anyone else. If you're holding onto a grudge, there's a quote, the Buddha says something, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like dropping acid on yourself. It doesn't hurt the person, it hurts you. So the obvious thing to do is to make up your mind to not let this eat away at you anymore and to let it go. And if you need help, I'm here. Find me at thecrystalcoach.com. Okay, so here's some stones that I picked out for you. There's just 4 of them, but it feels to me like these are very important for you. A couple of these stones that I'm showing you are not something you can, that every kind of crystal shop or whatever would have. This would be something you'd have to either go to a gem and mineral show to find or find it online. You can find aquamarine usually in crystal shops, not something this big, but because I found this as a gem and mineral show. But aquamarine is this wonder, and I've spoken to you all about the aquamarine before, but it is such a wonderful stone for release, for helping you let go. It's a water element, so it just washes away. If you're ready to have things released and washed away, aquamarine can support that in a a beautiful, beautiful, gentle way. So working with and having aquamarine, the frequency of that around you when you are working on letting go of things that no longer serve you, is a very good idea. Next is a stone called Nuumite, Nuumite, Nuumite. This is such an interesting vibration. I call it my karmic cleanser, but it's so much more than that. It really helps helps with the shadow work that you have to bring up to release. And sometimes we don't want to really look at it, but if you're ready, the Nuumite can support you and seeing the parts of you that are not something you want to see because you buried it so deeply. But in burying it so deeply, you have locked it away, and it can't go to the light. It can't be healed, locked up. It just festers. It gathers. It's like a scab over an infected wound. I mean, it never heals. So the Nuumite helps to like abrade the wound and get to the core of it so you can let it go. This is one of my favorite stones is Nirvana quartz, or another name for it is interference quartz. It's all lumpy and bumpy and irregular sides, and it grew in spite of all of the other minerals around it. And it is such a beautiful reminder that no matter what the outside looks like, the inside is perfect, because the universe doesn't make imperfect things. Our light, our souls are perfect. Our blueprint is perfect. It's just when we come into this reality, we have, the ancestral DNA of the parents we came in with. And sometimes, sometimes that means you have moles all over your body. It doesn't matter. It's perfection and imperfection. And the Nirvana quartz helps you it supports you in the work that you need to do around healing your perception of yourself. And it's a beautiful vibration. It's called Nirvana quartz, or I just lost it. Oh, the type it grows despite other things around it. Anyway, Nirvana quartz you probably find online. The other was a term that is probably not used very much anymore. Interference. Yeah. Growth interference quartz. There we go. So it's got all kinds of really beautiful facets on it. The lumpy bumpies can be beautiful if you really look at it. And you are beautiful. All lumpy bumpies of you. All warts and all. We're all beautiful. So there's that. And the last one is something that I've had for a long, long time, and it's been on my altar actually, and I've not ever used it, but there was a time when I just allowed myself to be drawn to stones, and I would buy them and not know why. But this is called Goethite. Goethite. It's named after the German poet Goethe. And it is something that will really support you with, again, like the Nuumite, the darker aspects of what you're trying to clear. it's a gentler vibration. I think the Pneumite is a storm element, and Goethite is an earth element. So there's, it works much more on a physical plane than the astral plane. And anyway, it could be a really good companion for you if you are working on letting go of really deep-seated self-hatred, or working on deep-seated fears. Okay. So Goethite, Pneumite, Nirvana quartz, and aquamarine can support you in navigating the lessons in life. Thank you for listening today and for being with me. Have a happy holiday if you're listening on the day that it airs. Otherwise, just have a happy life. If anything I've said today resonates with you at all, and you're interested in letting go of those programs and those feelings that don't serve you anymore, that cause you to live in a very small way, when you know in your heart you're meant for more, please reach out. You can reach out to me by email at mycrystalcoach@gmail.com. And yeah, that's my Gmail address, mycrystalcoach@gmail. Reach out and let me just say, hey, I heard your podcast and I'd like to hear more about what you do. Or you can go online and look at my website. It's thecrystalcoach.com altogether. So that's another episode for the Crystal Coach Show. Thank you so much for being with us and for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
You have been listening to The Crystal Coach Show, helping you live every day with clarity, guidance, and practical wisdom. With me, your host, Anahata. Tune in every first and third Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time on TransformationTalkRadio.com, where we channel divine wisdom through stories of service, spirituality, and stones for self-care. Feel connected and reside in the vibration of love on The Crystal Coach Show. For more information and to become the best version of yourself, visit thecrystalcoach.com. That's thecrystalcoach.com. See you next time.